Hi everybody, my name is Mrs. Abdul and I am one of the librarians at Albany High School. I'm here to give you a presentation on the choices that you have for your summer reading. There are 25 different titles, fiction, nonfiction, and graphic novels to choose from. The most important thing to remember is that it is your choice. If you pick up a book, dislike it, put it down, and find something else to read. The presentation will last about 13 to 15 minutes. If you have a pen and a piece of paper as I'm talking about the books and one sounds interesting, be sure to write down the title so that you have it for future reference. Everything that I'm going to be talking about can be found on the website. It is Albany High School summerreading.weebly.com. You can find it on the district site, the library site, and if you Google, you'll be able to find it there as well. I look forward to meeting you all next year as freshmen at Albany High School, but until then, enjoy your summer reading and your summer. All right, so let's get started with the 9th grade summer reading list. The first option of a few different that are sports related, this one is called 12 Rounds to Glory, and it's the story of Muhammad Ali. It's the story of his early boxing days, his Olympic days, his conversion to the Islamic faith, as well as his conscientious objection to going to war and the repercussions that had. This one reads a lot like a children's book, which is kind of fun because the illustrations kind of complement the story itself that's being told. The next option is One Good Punch. This is another semi-sports story. The main character is an 18-year-old kid who is pretty much making all the right decisions. He has a job writing obituaries for the local the local newspaper, and he's also a runner. But what ends up happening is he's caught in school with 4 joints in his locker, and the quote really on the screen talks about the fact that he doesn't want to be known for certain things 30 years from now, and that he decides that he's going to fight this and he's going to talk to the people and really admit to what actually happened and the reason that they have the joints in the locker. The next one is What My Mother Doesn't Know. This one is by Sonia Sones. This is one of those light, fluffy, beachy reads. It's a verse novel about a character named Sophie who is boy crazy and having fun. And she talks about her first loves, her second loves, her third loves, and all those things that her mother doesn't know happen in high school. Crackback is another one of the sports stories on the list, and Miles has decided that using steroids is easier than the hard work that it takes to get back on the football team after he's benched by a coach. That one's called Crackback. The next one, this is one of the graphic novels on the list. It's called Houdini, the Handcuff King. And it's not about Houdini's life, rather it's about some of the most famous tricks that Houdini did, including the one where he jumped into Boston Harbor, shackled, locked up, handcuffed, and how he was able to escape underwater, freeing himself. And so it does reveal the mystery behind it, which is actually quite fun to discover. The next one, The Hunger Games. You have been living under a rock if you have not read The Hunger Games or seen the movie, but if you haven't, it's definitely an option here on the list. So Katniss Everdeen is the main character of the story, this dystopian world where it's been broken up into different districts, and they all have kind of something special about them. But even so, every year, a boy and a girl from each of the districts is chosen in a lottery to fight until the death, except it's publicized and everybody is interested in watching to see who ends up surviving. Katniss takes the place of her sister, her younger sister, who was actually the one who was chosen for the lottery. That one is The Hunger Games. The next one is a true story. It's 8 Men Out, and it's the story of the Black Sox, or White Sox, in the 1919 World Series, and the world was coming off of a war, and they were interested in having fun and relaxing and being entertained. But what ended up happening was the newspapers discovered that the World Series was actually thrown by 8 of the White Sox. So if you like true stories, you like learning about things that have happened in history, but also you're a sports nut, this is a good option for you. That one's 8 Men Out. The next one is The Lightning Thief. There are plenty of books on this list that have been turned into series. This one is the same thing. The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan is the story of Percy Jackson, and this one mixes mythology with some really great adventure. Percy is the son of Poseidon and a mortal woman, and he's sent off to a camp where he and his friends must stop the war between gods. The next one on the list is What Happened to Cass McBride. If you have not read anything by Gail Giles, this is a good one to start with. Kyle is seeking revenge on Cass, who is a popular girl in school, because she basically shunned his brother, Kyle's brother, and Kyle ended up committing suicide. And so Kyle wants revenge for that, and so he kidnaps Cass and kind of semi-buries her underground. And so the story is told from flashbacks of what actually happened, and then also presently what Cass is doing to figure out who has her captured and why and how she can get out. The next one on the list is Whale Talk by Chris Crutcher, another semi-sports story. TJ's got a lot of things to overcome, the fact that he was adopted and the fact that he's not the most popular kid at school. And so he joins, he's put on a swim team, and with this swim team, they kind of become this group of misfits, a little bit more popular. The next one is I Have Lived 1,000 Years. This is a very graphic depiction of the Holocaust, told from the perspective of somebody who grew up during that time period and who survived Auschwitz. So Ellie is the character who tells her story. The next option is A Plague Year. We know that things like The Walking Dead are very popular right now. This one is about as close to zombies as you're going to get. In this case, Tom is trying to escape his kind of small town in Pennsylvania. But what ends up happening in 2001 is that all of the drug addicts start becoming zombies. And it's taking its toll on his family and friends, and he's looking to stop the plague from spreading. That one's called A Plague Year. The next one is Black and White. We actually had Paul Valpani Skype a couple weeks ago with us here at the high school library. And this story is about two friends, Marcus and Eddie, who are both really popular basketball stars in their school. And they do a little bit of criminal activity on the side. Now, what ends up happening is only one of them is caught, and the one that's caught is the black friend. And then the other friend is has to decide whether or not he wants to admit his part in the crime or if he wants to let his friend take the fall for him. Another one is Tyrell. This is by Co Booth. There's a few different books in this series after this one, so if you like it, definitely pick those up. Tyrell is living in a homeless shelter with his mother and brother, and his mother isn't really too interested in keeping the family together, but Tyrell doesn't want to lose his little brother. And so he's trying whatever he can in order to keep the family together, but also avoid jail where his father is. Delirium, one of the new dystopians as well, a good choice to read if you haven't already read this one. In this government-controlled society, everyone, by the time they turn 18, is goes under surgery in order to remove the love part of them so that they are now kind of safe and controlled. But a few months before Lena's 18th birthday, she meets a boy who is pretending to have had the surgery, and she falls in love. The next option is The Adoration of Jenna Fox. This is a science fiction story, one that leaves questions about genetic engineering, kind of that playing God aspect. Jenna is involved in a serious accident that she doesn't really remember a lot about, but what she starts to discover is that her father had uploaded her brain to a computer, regenerated limbs and body parts, and then downloaded her brain back into her body. And so she's living almost as kind of this Frankensteinish monster that everybody really doesn't know how to act around, but she's actually kind of hidden away at this point because what her father did was unethical by a lot of standards in this society. So she is coming to terms with whether or not she would have been better off dead, or if she's willing to accept her new body and her new life. The next option is Can't Get There From Here. This is by Todd Strasser, who's written plenty of stories that you might have actually come across. In this story, the main character is Maybe, who is a homeless girl on the streets of New York City. She has really kind of her family and everybody has abandoned her. So Maybe is deciding to rethink the fact that living on the streets is not all it was cracked up to be. And really, she just wants some relationships with people who care about her so that she can feel loved again. The next story is another graphic novel. This one is J. Edgar Hoover, a graphic biography. Now, J. Edgar Hoover was a true FBI agent who did anything and everything he could to take down the bad guys, and that included being a bad guy himself. Everything from wiretapping to blackmail, as well as just regarding laws put in place in order to stop things like that from happening. And what he ends up doing is kind of being his own adventure story. The next one is T minus. It's The Race to the Moon. Atyavani, who is the author and part illustrator of the story, is actually talking about what it was like for the race to the moon, two nations kind of competing together in order to make it there. The next one is Tears of a Tiger. This is one of the Sharon Draper stories that's on the list. Hopefully most of you have read Tears of a Tiger, but if you haven't, Robert has died after a car accident, a night of partying, and Andy, who is his best friend, is guilt-ridden because he was the one behind the wheel. The next option is Claudette Colvin, Twice Toward Justice, and before Rosa Parks made civil rights kind of more famous, Claudette Colvin was the first one who actually decided not to give up her seat on the bus. So this one is a good option if you wanted to know a little bit more about history. The Gospel According to Larry is another one that's more entertaining and more fun than some of the other ones on the list. Larry has a following on his website where he's making people do things basically by following him on the computer. A lot of that social media aspect, even though this was written about 10 years ago, is kind of fun to see. The next option on the list is Ask Me No Questions. Nadia is the main character of the story, and her family has moved from Bangladesh to New York City right before 9/11, but after 9/11, their family decides that they need to flee because of persecution and stereotyping. Another one that's a really fun one to read, but also very serious, is Endangered by Elliot Schrafer. And Sophie's father is American while her mother is Congolese. She decides to live in the Congo for the summer, but civil war breaks out, and so Sophie escapes into the jungle with Otto, who is a bonobo, a young bonobo, and is surviving among the chimpanzees and bonobos in the jungle until it's safe for them to return back to civilization. The next one is Fire from the Rock. This is the other Sharon Draper story. Sylvia has to make a decision whether or not she wants to be one of the young students to integrate Little Rock's Central High School, but she knows that it'll come at a cost, and so she has to make that decision for herself. So those are all the books on the list. Make sure that you go and check out the Albany High School Summer Reading Weebly. It again has all of the books, summaries, and titles, as well as the assignment that you need to download in order to do for summer. So make sure you check that part out. And where to get the books. The first two places that you can certainly look are the high school library. I'll be there all summer long. You can come check them out from there. The Albany Public Library has about 20 copies spread between the branches for you to check out there. But if you're interested in purchasing the book or sharing it with friends, you can purchase one at the Book House of Davison Plaza, Barnes & Noble at Colony Center, and Amazon. So my suggestion for that is to chip in a few dollars, and a few of you can share it over the course of the summer if that works for you. So that was the presentation of all of your books. hopefully I will see you in September at the Albany High School Library, but in the meantime, you could always check us out on Instagram, Goodreads, Twitter, and Tumblr.